Hi, welcome to Roy Talks. I'm Lynette Santoro-All, the director here at Roy G. Biv Academy. And I want to begin our conversations, as we always do, by thanking the sponsors who make events like this possible. Ohio Arts Council, Greater Columbus Arts Council. Without their participation in our mission to serve emerging artists, we would not be able to do events like this. So we're going to have a brief conversation today with Mychaelyn and talk a little bit about her work. And this is the first time that we've been able to do something live at Roy, so we're very excited about that. So thank you in advance for your patience as we work through our tech issues, which I anticipate we will have. If you have questions, please post them in the chat. We'll be monitoring that and be sure to respond to those. But really, we just were looking forward to having a conversation with you about you and your work and Roy's participation in your journey as an artist. So let's maybe talk a little bit about things particularly that are here, and maybe a little bit about your process in creating them.
Sure. This work basically responds to the artist's work currently is about, I think, and just sort of the way that a lot of the work came from domestic life and how we responded to other people during that time, which was using the phone. So all of the work is taken from screenshots of images and things that happened during the pandemic and the way that I communicated with my family, and some of the sad things like death and despondency, but also like some pretty funny stuff that happened during that time. And I think it's just like a mix of, just a snapshot of life during that time.
Yeah.
So
we've had many of these conversations with artists in 2020 and of course in 2021, and that's a theme that's prevalent with all of the work that you all are creating and finding time and capacity to do. So certainly definitely a big influencer on the work that you're creating. Did the pandemic and access to materials or studio time affect the kind of work that you were making also?
Well, the supply chain issues were a thing definitely for me, and I was making a lot of work for multiple shows at the same time, but I feel like that for me was like a big source of relief, of something to do and really focus on. My studio's in my house, so I was lucky that I wasn't affected by not being able to leave or have access to my materials in general. So I felt pretty lucky from that standpoint, and I do feel like the work itself did help me to have something to focus on. Sure. Besides, just some of the, negativeness of the situation. It was like one positive thing to kind of, during that time. So.
Yeah, I've often said that with artists who come into the space or to exhibit or just to visit, just how people encounter Roy and just take a deep breath when they walk through the doors. It's just a moment of, oh, I am someplace where I can just experience something, right? As opposed to always being in control of something or being only in the same four walls of something, to get out a little bit and experience some art. That's really cool too. Yeah. So we did talk about that a little bit. You have a show now here, and you also have a show in Dayton that's wrapping up. So you're right, you had to create an awful lot of work at the same time.
Right.
And similar themes or different work?
Similar themes. Most of my work involves domestic life, and I feel like because that's the thing I've focused on since I started back into my studio practice about, 6-7 years ago. I had taken more than a decade break from studio practice. And when I came back into it, I just felt really compelled to make my work about the thing that I felt prevented me from having a studio practice at that time, which was like having a family and having young children. And so much of my work is focused on what's going on in home life and sort of those connections and disconnections that we have, especially with technology and sort of painting a picture of like what I feel is a more accurate portrayal of being a parent and being a mother than social media or popular culture wants us to consider.
Right, that's a good point. I'm reflecting as you're saying that in my own life. I have a son who just moved back from Massachusetts, but I have a daughter who lives in Northern Ireland. And so a lot of the things that we do, where it used to be a Sunday afternoon conversation, is now like text because I have a second, and I get a response immediately back, as opposed to a time and place where we have to gather or communicate with each other. So it's a wonderful thing because you can reach out at any moment, but I did miss, of course, seeing them in person and those kinds of things.
Yeah, so a lot of the work, especially at the other show, I guess, is more about like our responses to being in the same room, but sort of being kind of disconnected. I mean, a lot of them are someone's on their cell phone and someone else is, just, I don't know, staring off into space or having a moment. And it's sort of, I think, a reflection on, the time and what we choose to pay attention to. So
yeah, that's a good point. When you are working, can you work on several different things at the same time? Do you like to finish a piece before you move on to something else? Because the nature of putting this together, what's your process? Do you sketch them out or plan them in some way, or?
Well, so everything, I really do use my phone as a major tool for making work. I mean, I take a lot of photos, and from those photos, they become drawings, and then the drawings are then used, for the work. So I draw a lot of inspiration from using this thing that is distracting everybody else. I'm also exploiting that to like make work about it. Sure. So you make, multiple things at once. And I think especially during the pandemic with the supply chain issues, like I would be out of something. I think because craft really had a resurgence, especially during then.
Yes.
So people were going for supplies that normally I have no problem obtaining. Right. And so it was just for, so I did have to, even though I want to like finish something incompletely. So, and then just the nature of, working on textiles, sometimes you have to have like a couple things going, just because there's just a lot of repetitiveness in some, in some instances. So you have to, just to kind of keep yourself sane a little bit. I do like the rhythmic, meditative, ness of like repeated motion, right? However, like sometimes you're just like, I gotta do something else.
I'm done with teal right now.
Right.
I need to move into something else. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I know quilters do the same. They have a board and everything is posted and put together, and you're working on a couple things at the same time, because as you say, it does get like, I'm done with that piece. I need to move on to something else. Yeah. What informs the color choices that you make for? Because I'm understanding the blue for Facebook, of course, but yeah.
Well, I for the most part, I don't think like the color necessarily is what it's, more an expression of just sort of whatever I feel is the mood of the moment. Okay. So, in some cases, yes, I did choose the blue for, whatever, because it's a screenshot, but color is a difficult thing because as somebody that came from a painting background and being able to like choose precisely what kind of color I wanted, that's the challenge in working with textiles. Unless you're going to go real deep and like hand dye massive amounts of yarn to get what you need, you're going to have to work within what is commercially available. So that's, I think, a new challenge for me in the work is finding, commercially made yarn that, works, and sometimes it doesn't and sometimes it does. So
yeah. Interesting. And this exhibition you curated yourself and installed yourself, but in Dayton, someone curated the work.
Yes.
And so you worked with them on what pieces and why and how, that sort of thing.
Yeah, Michael Goodson is the curator of my show. he's from Columbus
Oh,
here.
yes,
so
Wexler
Columbus-
Center, CCAD, we
Right.
remember him, yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
so now he is the current curator for the Contemporary Dayton, and yes, I worked with him
Mhm.
for about a year prior to the show, especially because it was sort of an unusual situation where they were building the space at the same time.
Yes.
And so you're making work for a place that you've never seen, and you're looking at architectural drawings, and then yeah, I would say that the show in Dayton is heavily curated.
Uh-huh.
You know, so there's other work, but some of it didn't make the cut, but I don't hold it against him.
Oh, and that happens, I mean, when we have exhibitions here, of
Right.
course, you bring, 8 pieces and 6 make it, right? Because they fill the space and the tone of what you want to present and that kind of thing too. So
Yeah.
I feel like we're always curating, exhibitions and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I do try to. I think that's like a weakness in a lot of artists is that they want to put up a lot of work. So I do tend to bounce that information off of other people just so that it's, good spacing, lots of room to breathe, and
That's right. Not every exhibition is a retrospective. So
right.
I love how this is laid out. You have some space in between each, which is wonderful because you really should take some time to just spend with them, and the space around them allows you to do that. So this is really wonderfully laid out. And the viewers don't know this, but you came with paper. You had already done all the math. Everything was already laid out and ready to go. So that was great.
Yes, well, I have to give a shout out to my friend Jeff Jones, who actually helped me do the layout, and he also helped he actually installed the show at the Contemporary as well. So he's just got an eye for that. So rely on your friends, people, if you need to.
Good tip, pro tip.
Yeah, pro
Yes.
tip. So pro move.
Very good. So where is Roy in your path as an artist? You have, we work with emerging artists. We work with artists who typically have not had much experience in many exhibitions leading up to their time here at Roy. And so with your, path as an artist, where does Roy fit in that journey?
Roy was a great opportunity for me. I lived in Columbus previously more than a decade and a half ago. And really, this is my first show in Columbus that I've had since, retiring my studio practice and coming back into it. So it was a great opportunity, and you've been around for a long time, and so it was really something that I was excited about working with. And now that you're here in this new area, it was great to see like a huge crowd last night, and a great turnout. And just like the whole scene outside is a fun event. So
it was great last night. In addition to Roy being open, 400 was Chrome Edge, Vanderelli Room, Secret Studio. We had a Friendship Flea. Gravity had the Festival for Good. So there was a lot of synergy, and I loved it because in the space currently we have your exhibition. So that's part of our Roy Presents, artists whose work is juried to be here. But then we also have an invitational show, Packed, where we gave 50 different artists bankers boxes to transform into art. And then we also have a Dia de los Muertos exhibition and an ofrenda. So it was a wonderful synergy, as you say, of different backgrounds and cultures and perspectives. And so it was really great to reconnect with, so many people we hadn't seen for a while. So that was great.
Yeah. And I was happy to show, I'm glad to have the opportunity to show a little bit different, more experimental work. So, that's why I'm thankful to have this opportunity at Roy as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's the wonderful thing about Roy, that we really do want it to be that moment for artists where you can experiment with ideas, or with materials, or with layout or installation or whatever. So that's great. Do you anticipate your work changing at all in terms of either size, like you're going to work smaller or larger? Do you have something on the horizon? What's next for your work?
I do have a solo show coming up at Sean Christopher Gallery, which will be in December. And I have a couple of prospective museum shows
Mhm.
on the horizon, but I'm not going to say where those are yet.
Okay.
But those will be probably, I mean, I will probably be doing some monumental work for those type of things. The stuff that's hanging in Dayton is a little bit more formal than this, and it's quite a bit larger, like 6 feet by 6 feet. But
Okay.
these are sort of moderately sized. Yeah.
Yeah, someone was asking me last night about that and your size, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna ask her tomorrow for sure, what sizes you like to work in, and maybe certain images or ideas that you have inform the size that you.
I mean, that's totally
do.
true. I think that's totally true with any artist's work. So, but yeah, the other show was an opportunity to have, really, really large work, and I had never done that before. So that's like the largest I had worked previously. And then this was a chance to make textiles that were less formal, and that they are not, the other textiles are stretched on stretcher bars like a painting. These are, more your classic rug, but also like some of them have been dismantled and put back together in ways to kind of signify the theme of, being a ruin, or,
That's a great segue. I was going to go into, we talk a little bit about the title of the exhibition and how you think to that.
Yeah, so I think just the title Future Ruin, I think, is a little bit of a reflection on like everything that's happened during the pandemic, and thinking about, I mean, so much bad news coming at you, and is this like the end of the world?
Yes.
And so, and at the same time, I was looking at a lot of textile work from, civilizations past. And so there's like, if you look almost at any museum's collection, they have these like weird tiny fragments. Some are like rondelles of people's faces and like animals. And it's like there were complete narratives at one point. And there's just these little pieces that are little fragments that are left. And it's just so interesting, like how they're collected and like displayed. And I just wanted to I was thinking about that during the making of this, and sort of like, well, what are like the little bits and pieces and of this time? And like I said, there's humor and there's some like sadness, because I think we've all experienced death or illness or some distressing things during this time. And so and there's also like tempered with humor and weird self-portraits and just the things that you had to do to amuse yourself. So so I just felt like what are like some little snippets of that, and how might those present themselves in the future, if you found some rugs in the future that were made during this time.
Right.
So yeah.
What is the text that's
Right.
really,
What's that bad dad joke? That's what you said last night. And I was like, it's actually a conversation I had with my mom. My mom's husband died during this period, and I sent her a message, and I said, well, did you get my message? Because she didn't respond, and she was like, well, I'm cemetery shopping. So, and I was like, was everyone dying to get it? And she has a great sense of humor. So she actually thought it was, funny, but it's like, we were tempering that sadness of that time with, bad dad jokes.
Right.
So that's what some of these, reflect on, like the duality of this whole situation. So.
Which I think, it is so important, and art has been such a great way for us to be reminded of that, right? Our humanity, but also our humor, and how can we work through these things. So yes, do you see your work, because I love how it's steeped in culture, this particular series of pieces. And is that something that's important to you, to be reflecting and commenting on what's happening? Do you see your work heading down that same path and continuing to make those really pithy comments about life, or do other things interest you as well?
I think my main interest is just like, as a parent and a female artist, like how I sort of collections are just what I gravitate to in my work, and I think it'll continue to be a part of my work, whether it's like sort of the documentation that I was doing of, my day-to-day life, or sort of even like what's happening on my phone. So,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly. Do you work with other artists in a collective? How do you, because we talk about this a lot here, how do we grow as artists, right? Do you have a critique group, or do you seek out certain people to give you reflections on where you're going and what you're doing, or maybe you do not?
No, I feel like having your own community is like the most important, thing that you could do. Seeking out artists locally that you have a connection to, and then I just felt like social media for me, like when I was getting back into studio practice, social media for me was really a way to connect with other artists and and receive critical feedback and just ask questions about things, because I feel like I was so far removed from, this life, and I didn't know like what to do next as far as an artist. So like creating that community was really helpful, like going on residencies and meeting people was very helpful. And I'm in the New York City Crit Club right now, giving that a go, just, for a change of pace, to meet new people and such. So, I mean, I highly recommend seeking out, other people and their work, and building like some sort of connection, even if you don't live near people.
Right, and not even necessarily in your own medium. Other mediums give other perspectives as well to your work. So as you say, I mean, your work is very painterly, probably because of your background, but other artists and other working in other mediums can offer helpful feedback as well.
Right, because I don't have a background in fibers at all, really, and so everything I know about it is self-taught, and from seeking out other artists like Trish Anderson and saying like, hey, you're rug tufting too. I mean, I know hers are very abstract, but I was, had all kinds of technical questions, and she was super awesome with answering them. So that's, what's the great thing about, building connection, even if it's just online, helped, because now people contact me and they say like, how do I use this machine? And I give them the whole rundown about, here's how you, because it has become quite popular.
Yes.
And I was saying to somebody else the other night, I was like, I'm not sure if it's like my my analog for my social media is only steering me towards like rug people constantly.
Right. Yes.
But I was like,
now.
it seems like super popular right now. There's a ton of people doing it and really interested in it. So yeah.
Which is also very interesting as a commentary on, accessibility of creativity, right? And just slowing down. I mean, the pandemic made us do that, right? Just slow down and look around and maybe find something else about yourself that you hadn't anticipated before, and get involved in something, sourdough bread.
Right.
Or
just something to do with your hands that was like an actual physical thing that's real, and not just clicking on your phone constantly, because there's really only so much of that you can do, as someone that does it a lot.
You want to talk a little bit about the t-shirt that you're wearing today? I'm sure people are seeing that. Is that our 71
this is
section between Cincinnati?
Oh no. But no, it's a company that I really love from Sweden. And, but I also feel like, I think it's a little bit of it's both.
Yes,
This is what
the Hell is Real tour, Heaven and Hell.
It's the same. It exists simultaneously, right? So
cool. Okay, well, I'm gonna look a little bit and see if we have anybody who's asked us any questions in the chat, because I don't want to lose anybody having asked us anything. I just left the meeting. Is it in the chat? I knew I was going to do something technical. I left it, but we're still on because the laptop is working as well. Oh my gosh, that's embarrassing. Okay. Oh, so we have some interns in the audience too. Anybody have any questions for Mychaelyn that you would like to ask? Otherwise, I'm moving on to other things. Think about it if you have something else to ask her. Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the path of you as an artist, and are you doing art full time? You don't do anything else?
No.
Which is awesome.
Yes.
And how did you get to a place where you were able to do that? What for you was the marker that this is it, I'm going to be doing this full time, whatever it takes?
Well, part of it for me is that, a little bit of the backstory is that when I decided to have children, and I worked in the arts here in Columbus, and it, became readily apparent that if you were going to have a child, the place that I was working, the cost of childcare was more than, and so I had to decide whether I was going to raise my child or, transfer my entire salary into that. It became almost a non-choice.
Yes.
And so that's also something that I am interested in my work, and, those sort of choices that are non-choices. But so basically I stayed at home, and it is, I feel like it's, it was really a privilege to be able to do that and to have a partner that was able to support me like that. And then it became so when I started making work again, I was actually working multiple jobs, and it just became readily apparent that I could, we could, live the same lifestyle that we've been living very frugally. And, and we, I think in Dayton, it's, a slower pace of life a little bit. It's very affordable. And I think all those things kind of came together for me to be able to work in the studio full time. So, and then as my success grew a bit, then I was able to put the part-time jobs aside and, and do it full time. So, I mean, I feel really lucky because also, I have support from people in my life that are able to help me, do this full time. And even my kids, who are super cool with me, me doing this, full time. So I think it's kind of a family choice, and it's all worked out for me.
Yeah,
so
that's good. I know that a lot of the emerging artists that are involved with Roy are on that trajectory also, where they're still maybe working a couple of jobs in order to be able to have studio time and that. And so it's important to, put that time first and make it a priority to be able to work on your craft. How do you decide where it is that you're going to apply? You talked about residencies and other galleries. What
I mean, I think it's just looking, I don't know, as far as residencies go, I'm always looking for great free opportunities that are
in mountains or in a different country.
Or just, I mean, in general, I like the ones where you're meeting other artists, because I feel like that's been the most helpful to my career. And, and I've been able to do really the Golden Foundation, the makers of Golden Paint, which is one of the best ones you could do out there, and unlimited free materials, and just meeting some really great people, including the Golden family. And so, I mean, I basically, just look at the opportunities, and I go from there. And I mean, I think at first, when I was first studio practice, I was applying to a lot of stuff. But then that becomes super expensive, and and so as time has gone by, I've really scaled back. So it's more looking at grants and residencies at this point than applying for shows.
I marvel at artists who are able to keep track of all of that. There has to be a way that you determine, by season or by month, or however it is that you decide where you're going to apply and when, and if you apply to 3 things in April and all 3 things say yes.
Then I think that's some sort of miracle in itself. I mean, we all have our unicorns of places that we all apply to that we still haven't gotten in, no matter how many times. And Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever been in a situation which, good for somebody that has, it's like, oh, I can't decide whether I'm going to go to Mark Rothko, residency or Skowhegan. Maybe I'll do, but I don't know too many people like that, but
Right.
yeah, good for them if they have to, but it hasn't, like, I may have applied for 3 things, but I've gotten just 1. I haven't had that many like conflicts that, but yeah. Good for somebody that has.
Yeah, exactly. We wish them well.
Yeah, I just had to turn down all this money because I could only do one of these things. Said an artist never.
Exactly. Any advice, something that you learned from your own work here at Roy, or in working with the gallery space, or working with other artists? Any advice to share with?
I mean, I guess like the thing that I feel is most important is because I meet a lot of artists that are parents and they feel like really bad about like how much work they're getting done. And I'm always like, look, I took 12 years off.
Yeah,
12 years. You would think like, oh, you're never coming back after more than a decade. And I'm like, you know what? It's okay to like take a break. If you're in it for the long run, I think, then it's okay to, have a term where, you step back, and not everybody can go at it. But if that's the goal to get back in, I think, don't beat yourself up over it. So.
Yes, I remember one of our initial conversations was that, the non-traditional aspect of your being an emerging artist. And, at Roy, we don't define it that way. We define it as, experience and representation and those kinds of things, but not by age or even by education. So it was really wonderful to be able to offer that opportunity to, a wide variety of artists in various spaces in there.
Yeah, and I mean, I think just like the term emerging is just so amorphous anyway, because like you said, I guess for my age, some people would be like, oh, you're not really emerging, you're mid-career. I'm like, I don't feel mid-career because like but so I think those terms are all, like you said, like amorphous anyway. So it's good to have the opportunity and the space to, do something like this. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we talked a little bit before we got started today about Mychaelyn taking over our Instagram, so we'll look forward to that. We have an embarrassment of riches this month because we have so many different artists whose work will be in the gallery. So we're reaching out to see who wants to take over our Instagram. So it'll be great to get maybe some behind the scenes of your studio space and your practice and that sort of thing. So we'll see. I don't want to give too much away of what you'll be offering.
Follow all that and more. So
excellent. Okay, well,
We have one question.
Okay, go ahead.
Eric says, really enjoyed meeting you and seeing your work in person last night. I got lost in thought on my drive home thinking about all the associations that your work invokes. The use of hand and verbal communication, like handwriting a letter, typing a message on your phone, to the contrast of pixel or light or digital, to the thread or analog. Will you be continuing this series of work?
I think so. I mean, I think for me, like the phone is another character in my life. And so I will probably continue to treat it as such. So, and like, this is the first time I've actually done any text with textiles. So
I can't even imagine how that is to arrange text with textile. And
I mean, I didn't know how it was going to be possible either. So that's what I was, I'm glad for the time and space to like kind of, work on that sort of thing. Right. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, thank you, Eric, for asking the question. I'm definitely going to be continuing doing some text work.
Great, thanks, Eric. Yeah, I think it's here to stay for sure, text and how we communicate with each other. And so, yeah, that's great that, you can incorporate that in what you're doing. I'm wondering about that, particularly when you were talking earlier about, so many people getting back into craft and that sort of thing. And I wonder if that will be reflected in the next year or so in the kinds of exhibitions that galleries will have, right? Because more of that work is being created now, which will be available then in order to exhibit. And I wonder what artists did with work that they created in the pandemic when they had a show and it was canceled.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, just, going to New York even a couple months ago, just the amount of weavers making really amazing work. Erin Riley, who does these screenshots, it's a diary of her life, and and does these computerized screenshots of things that are or of objects going on in her life, and makes these enormous textiles. And yeah, she's amazing. And I've just seen like a lot more people using weaving and sort of more traditional craft type things to do, to make work. So I do think we're going to see more of it. And I do think that with the pandemic, people have gravitated toward that because, just having something with your hands and, being a part of something that's actually real,
right.
So, as opposed to Facebook.
Right, exactly. Yeah, something that you can control, as you say, something that you can do with your hands and actually produce something for, others to see, but also for you to enjoy the process of that.
Right, yeah. And I just think about like the idea of making, spending hundreds of hours making a rug based on like a meme that my mom posted on Facebook. Because during the pandemic she was posting like 50 times a day, and it was funny because I would look at her feed and nobody was liking anything, or there'd be like one like, and I'm like, who do you think is seeing this stuff? And so at one point when she posted this, I took a screenshot and I sent it to my sister, and that's why it's called Mom at Work on Facebook, because she was really treating it like a job.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
Yeah, she was a professional poster. So.
Do you think about that with your own work when you're creating it and you're sending it out into the world? I know it's an expression of you and your experience, but are you concerned at all about how people are receiving it? Is it important for you for them to receive it in the way that you're sending it out?
I guess I don't. I have no control over how people perceive it. Yeah. So, and maybe being an artist that's older, I don't really care. Maybe that's a young person's game. I'm just putting out my views, and they're free to interpretation in some sense, and I can't really control what people are thinking or interpreting. So I just put ideas out into the world, and it's not really, I guess, my place as an artist to really I have any more control than that, right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I think that we had this discussion when we were installing. I just love the titles because it puts you exactly right there what you were thinking when you created the piece. And so it was the impetus for a lot of conversations last night when people encountered the work, read through the title of it, and then had a reflection or a conversation based on that prompt.
Yeah.
And so it is really a dialogue prompt.
Right, right. I mean, I feel like, titles to me are very integral to the work itself. And
You got some ice or something? I got a bicycle accident.
So, but we'll pause our conversation because we have some people outside who got into an accident and maybe need some help. Do we have maybe an intern who's helping to get some ice? We have plenty of it in the freezer if you want to grab that. Thank you. This is, as we discussed, this is a live, so we haven't been able to do a live conversation. And this happens, yeah, exactly.
Real stuff is happening.
Real stuff is happening right now, exactly, yeah. Thank you. So even in some cases, texts and emails and things that we send out, we might have an intention when we do so, but it's maybe received differently. It's not supposed to have a tone, but sometimes it does, right? And people are not responding, and you think, oh, well, that's not what I meant. I meant this.
Yeah.
Or,
I mean, I think that's just the nature of these things, and somebody always gets their feelings hurt. But I mean, there's no way to set a tone. And as I mean, some of these things have emojis or whatever in them. Yeah, sometimes it's a poor choice for what we choose to do.
Right.
I do think that's what's interesting about, the text itself, or like
Mhm.
taking snippets of notes and language and how those things are, interpreted, and then, yeah, taking something so fleeting like a crappy, meme, and spending hours making it into a rug or whatever.
Right,
So,
yeah. I remember in the early days of texting with an older person in my life, they had LOL, but they meant lots of love, and it's not, it's laugh out loud. And so there'd be these moments where I would say, this terrible thing happened, or this, I'm struggling with such and such, LOL. And I'd be like, wait, no, we all agreed that LOL would be, laugh out loud, not
Right.
lots of love. So there has to be a moment where you agree what it is that we're interpreting, right? There's a level playing field about what these letters mean when we put them together, so.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, I'm sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought.
Yeah,
when we
no,
were
it was
talking
a
with
weird interruption. Yeah, I hope everything's okay. Right.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
I
very
got
good.
thumbs up
We're
from
getting
Dan.
that, thank you, good,
Thank
yeah,
you.
all right. Well, we are anyway coming up on close to our time.
Okay.
Any last minute things that we want to talk about that we haven't addressed? I've enjoyed this conversation. I can't believe it's been 45 minutes already. Anything that we wanted to discuss that we haven't so
I
far?
don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, we did all that plus a bike accident, so, yeah.
You're getting a lot for your money today when you tune into this conversation. Well, Mychaelyn's work is going to be up here at Roy until November 6th, and our gallery hours are Wednesday to Sunday, 12 to 6. So stop by and see the work in person. And then we'll look forward to seeing what's next for you, and also Instagram takeovers and what's going to be happening with that. So thank you all very much for your kind attention.
Thank you for having me.